Welcome to the Loyal Opposition Podcast. I'm Bernie Flowers, one of Uncle Sam's wayward sons. I intend to talk about important topics every week in hopes of helping to improve our country and our way of life. I ask that you like, share, and subscribe as we try to grow the channel and defend America's middle class. So, let's get started. Today, I'm joined by my friend, Brian Talley. He's a former Marine who faced severe medical malpractice at the hands of the Veterans Administration healthcare system. Brian shares his harrowing experience of being misdiagnosed and improperly treated for a life-threatening infection that was aggressively eating away at his spine and his internal organs. This ordeal led him to fight for veterans' rights and healthcare improvements, highlighting the systemic issues within the VA system. So without any further ado, Brian, how you doing, bro?
Bernie Flowers, how are you?
Brother, I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm hanging in there one day at a time, sir.
Amen. Welcome to the podcast, man. There's a lot going on right now, but your story is just as important as anything, and that's why we're talking about it today. You got a wild story that's almost unheard of, and I want people to know it. So, first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I was born in Youngstown, Ohio, and moved to Southern California when I was a baby. My mom left my dad, and me and my little brother grew up in San Diego until I was in high school, and then we moved to Colorado, and just west of Colorado Springs, where I would go through high school, and then after that, I joined the Marine Corps right out of high school, and served some time in the Marine Corps. A total of 8 years, 5 active, and then 3 in the inactive reserves in Buckley. And then started a family and a business.
Outstanding. You know, I got a lot of ties to Colorado Springs. I was stationed out there at Schriever Air Force Base, and then I worked for Northcom for over a decade. So I had a lot of experience, and I got a lot of love for Colorado Springs, and that's another thing that ties us together. But First of all, tell us about this Veterans Administration rights thing that you got going on here. How did you fight for veterans' rights? How did all this thing get started?
Well, you know, one day you're living the American dream, and then the next year you're on your knees on a bathroom floor and laying down and trying to find relief from this excruciating onset of pain. And, one thing led to another. I would end up in the VA ER, not once, not twice, but 3 times in a single week. Very long story short about the malpractice is that I had a bone-eating staph infection that was aggressively eating me from the inside out for 4 months. That did, irreparable damage. And to this day, I'm a chronic pain patient, and there's a lot of things that no longer work on my body due to the infection. I'm lucky to be alive. The infectious disease doctor says that I should have passed away within about 10 days and went into septic shock, and my internal organs would have just shut down. Instead, they were just getting eaten alive from the inside out as I was taking 40 pills a day to just try to make it through the day. But, I was thinking today, instead of me telling my story on what happened with the malpractice, I think a better route to take today would be to engage in, my walk in Congress and how I actually ended up changing a 74-year VA legal loophole that has destroyed the lives of veterans and their families for generations, because I think that's going to be more impactful on this podcast here. I've never really done the advocacy part, and that's where I think a lot of veterans are struggling in real time. They don't know how to effectively communicate and effectively advocate for themselves. And the reason why I know that is because I get so many emails, hundreds of emails a month, and text messages and phone calls from broken veterans who can't get the care that they deserve from their VA. And then they make calls to veteran organization groups, and they make calls to their own members of Congress. They get ignored, and so their last line of defense in looking for that help is me. I guess they look at me as a beacon of hope and a guy that took on the federal government and won in a righteous way, in an honorable way, and and they look at me as a guy that they can kind of spill their story to, and I'm there for them. I'm there to kind of absorb their problems and their issues, and I, just kind of give them some good godly counsel, not legal counsel because I'm not an attorney, but just a guy who's been through the system and understands the ins and outs of it very well, so I can be there to kind of help lift these veterans up, in their greatest time of need.
Well, Brian, the bottom line is I normally ask a bunch of questions, but you are correct. Your story is unique. You are taking on the system alone. You're not a nonprofit. You're not out here trying to make money on the side. You're actually walking through the halls of Congress, and you clawed and fought your way in there to do that for your fellow veterans. So let's just talk about that. Just let people know what's going on.
So look, a 74-year VA legal destroyed me and my family. So first I fell victim to the medical malpractice. Then I lost my member of Congress because he was indicted and dismissed from Congress. Then the VA threw legal malpractice on me. And if you guys want to hear a little bit more about my backstory, just go to briantalley.com, or just Google me, Brian Talley, U.S. Marine veteran, or just put in Brian Talley, Tally, and that'll bring you up to the point to where we're going to start now. Because I've told my story a million times on the internet, and so instead of me telling it again, I want to talk directly to the veterans out there, or to a spouse that needs help advocating for themselves, because I can't advocate for everybody. And so basically, once all this stuff happened, I needed to stand up and fight for myself. First call any Marine's going to do, I told my congressman. Well, that didn't last for very long because he was indicted and he saw his way out of Congress. So in my weakest and most vulnerable time in need, after everything that could have went wrong, I picked up a pen and a piece of paper, and I started drafting everything that went wrong and how the VA strategically used this loophole that was written in 1946 to basically throw me and my family to the wolves.
Wow.
And I did so much research on this, and I had found out that this has been going on for such a long period of time, and tens of thousands, if not more, veterans have fallen victim to this loophole that is very cleverly packaged by the Office of General Counsel to basically stack the deck against injured veterans who have already lost everything due to no fault of their own. And the majority of the times, the veterans end up losing their lives due to the malpractices. I nearly did. So if that happens, there's going to be nothing left in the tank for a spouse or even the injured veteran to stand up and then fight after this loophole has destroyed them, not only physically, but financially. So I knew that there needed to be a change. And so I took it upon myself to draft my own bill. Wow. I was a guy that owned a custom landscape company. I didn't know anything about legislation or really how the process worked. So I sat in a chair in my, weakest and most vulnerable time in need, suffering from anxiety and depression. I'm losing everything. I'm gaining all this weight. I'm self-isolating in my room and crying myself to sleep. Every couple of hours, my wife would wake me up with another handful of pills, like I said, to make it through the day. And this was after the surgery. But post-surgery, I was still suffering immensely from the pain and all of the emotional side effects of what this loophole did to me and my family. And so I drafted a bill and I hand delivered it to the steps of Washington, D.C., and that's where I began to walk the halls of Congress, going door to door, urging lawmakers to change an outdated law. And this is my original bill that I drafted right here. Okay. I did this in straight up congressional form.
Mm-hmm.
I recruited an online legislative team comprised of all volunteers, and we put this bill into working form. I'm talking everything according to the books, as if I was a member of Congress and I was going to introduce a piece of legislation. This is perfect. We're so perfect that when I met with Congressman Dave Bratt in the 115th Congress, within 30 days, he took this bill that was created by a veteran who had fallen victim in the worst way and advocated to actually get a piece of legislation in my name, because I had done the work. I had done the job of Congress that they had failed to do for 74 years. And instead of me being at home and crying continuously, I decided one day that I needed to get up and fight for what's right, fight for the 20 million American veterans in this country that deserve better, and fight for me and my family to get that justice that we will never see. But the justice would come in the form of a bill to change this outdated law and to have my last name forever inked in federal law. So these members of the Office of General Counsel will always remember what they did to me and so many others when they receive a tort claim. So one bill became two bills. The first bill would die in Congress. I started that next Congress. H.R. 3813, Congressman Mark Meadows became a great champion of mine, but that would be short-lived as he would go on to become President Trump's chief of staff. But that was good because that was the credibility more I needed in the 116th Congress for me to continue my march in Congress. And then I would end up having a third bill introduced, which was completely bipartisan, as I would go door to door. Liberals, Democrats, conservatives, Republicans, it didn't matter. I was not there to show my political colors, if you will. I was there to march in a nonpartisan fashion and represent every veteran, not just a Republican or a Democrat or a male or a female. This was something that I was trying to change across the board for every veteran if they had ever suffered from VA medical malpractice and gross negligence.
Brian, you live in Houston, right?
Yes, I do now. When all this happened, we were living in Southern California. I had a business in Colorado and in Southern California, and so when all this stuff went down, I was in Southern California. We basically ended up losing everything there except for my home. So we had to come to a place where we could start over again. I have 4 kids, a wife. So we had to come to a place that had good hospital systems because I continued to battle physically. And we needed a place where we could start over that was affordable. And
How do you pay for these trips to DC? I mean, that's an expensive proposition. I lived in DC for quite some time, and I lived close to it. And just the concept of getting physically into Congress is a hassle. So tell us a little bit about that.
So I basically sold challenge coins, and I didn't sell them. I asked for donations, right? So I created a challenge coin that basically, it's right here. It's right here. And this was my way to say, how can I get the veteran community involved, right?
Mm-hmm.
How can I raise funds to do something for the good of the country with no money coming in? And as I'm losing everything, of course, I didn't have enough money to cover everything. So we put that on credit cards. But these were $25 minimum donation,
Mm-hmm.
and people could donate whatever they wanted. And it was kind of unique because on the back it says, "I pray my story will be the last, and that all the pain and suffering my family and I have endured can go into passing a new law to protect all veterans who have courageously served our great nation." And it's got my signature, and it's got U.S. Marine veteran on it.
Are you
And
still
then
selling them?
No, the challenge coin, I think I got maybe 2 or 3 left. But we made a couple hundred of them. Because that's all we needed to get across the finish line.
Man.
So it's got my first bill on there, the name of it, and it's got the year. But we designed this, and it's pretty awesome, protecting all
I wouldn't
who
mind
served our
myself.
nation. So that's the first thing I did is I started to use my entrepreneurial mindset and says, I need to go to DC all these times. I got to do the job of Congress. I literally became my own honorary member of Congress, and a lot of it was funded through veterans themselves, through everyday veterans, through people that love me, through my family and my friends and my past and former customers at my custom landscape company. They believed in me and in my fight. And sometimes I would just have a friend say, "Hey, man, I don't have any cash, but I got points. Let me get you a flight." So everybody came together for the greater good of the country, which put me in DC where I needed to be, and where I needed to advocate, and where I needed to be sitting directly across from members of Congress and their professional staffers and their legislative council to basically beg them to change this outdated law that's destroying veterans. And, again, one thing led to another, and I got my bill introduced in the Senate. So now we had two Congresses, 4 bills. The 116th Congress, I had the House, and now I had the Senate companion bill. We married those up. Shortly thereafter, they passed both chambers, and President Trump would go on to sign my bill into law after 3.5 years and 12,000 hours of advocacy on my own.
Wow.
We overturned this law to give transparency and accountability to those veterans who have suffered through medical malpractice. Now, of course, these bills, right, don't prevent the malpractice, because look, we're all human and humans make errors, and that's okay. But that's why we have a law system and a court system to adjudicate these types of behaviors when they happen, to compensate those injured veterans when they do happen. And those protocols were not in place to work with the veteran. They were put in place to work against the veteran. So in my case, what they did is they committed a fraudulent crime against me. They told me that everything was fine and that they were going to settle my claim. And they publicly came out and stated that they had made an error. And they stated to me and my family repeatedly, and I quote, "We failed to meet the standard of care, and we will be settling your claim." Well, they looked in the state I was in. They saw that the California state statute of limitations were 1 year for independent contractors. I had 12 clinicians in my case at the VA Loma Linda that all failed to meet the standard of care. One was an independent contractor, but you don't know who these are. They have VA business cards. They have VA doctor's coats. They see VA patients. They show up to the same place of work every single day. to work. So according to U.S. federal tax code, those are not independent contractors, but they are employees. So basically, the VA put it all on the back of this unidentified independent contractor and saw their way out of my claim when they sent me the letter denying everything after they had said that they were going to approve everything. I had missed my California state statute of limitations to sue this independent contractor in state court by 2 days.
So hiding behind regulations.
Yeah. So what they did is they withheld crucial information in my case, ensured that I could not have any recourse in the state of California, and they protected their independent contract doctor. So they wiped their hands clean of it. So basically, this malpractice never happened within the VA, and it never happened, period, because they were able to effectively, that's what I said, wipe their hands clean of this. And in 1946, I think the VA had good intention. There wasn't a lot of independent contractors. There was very, very few, ones and twosies. But over the past generations, they found out that, you know what, we could actually staff an entire VA hospital with independent contractors, make them look like VA employees. And when malpractice ensues, that's our way out of it. They're not government employees. The way the law is written is, if a independent contractor is guilty of this medical malpractice, the government is not responsible for paying out any compensation for the negligence or the malpractice that took place. So the veteran is forced to sue these independent contractors in state court. But the VA knows that, well, his state statute of limitations are going to run out in a week. Okay, let's drop him a letter. We're going to deny everything based on a technicality and an employment status, and we're going to throw him to the wolves. Well, that's exactly what happened to me. And I was a strong man mentally, emotionally, and somewhat physically. I was still kind of broken from my time in the Marine Corps, but I was indeed walking and still running a business. And if they could put me on my knees and be 99% done with not just continuing on with this fight, but with life, this was bulletproof. And so through perseverance and resilience and everything else that I could just pull out of me, it is what I use, every ounce of energy, and it damn near killed me. Panic attacks, trips to the ER. Like I said, you're taking 40 pills a day. You're packing your pockets full of pain pills and anxiety meds to walk the halls of Congress. You got your best friend there, John Steelman, showing up with a chair so I could sit down between appointments because my back and my spine couldn't handle the walking anymore, and my over 300-pound body that I had just let go, and I started to, abandon myself because I needed to get this law passed to ensure that it never happened again to anybody else. And I became obsessed with it. It's all I did. 24/7, 365. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. And if I was eating, it was bad. It was ice cream and cake and all that garbage. That's why I gained all the weight, and I was doing it at night. And, just like I said, man, just living this life of despair. But I couldn't go on with the rest of my life knowing that was still out there. So I needed this closure, this mental closure to move on so I could begin my healing process. So I put so much pressure on Congress because I needed this done now, not only for me, but for all the veterans out there so they had never suffered the same fate that me and my family did. So I became an advocate. I became a veterans advocate. And, I didn't just talk the talk. I walked the walk. I promised myself I would see it through, and I did just that.
Well, how was your family handling all this while all this stuff was going on and you're back and forth to D.C.?
My family is amazing. I got 4 amazing kids. Me and my wife have been married now 27 years. They saw their dad, in their weakest and most vulnerable time. And they saw their dad in a very broken state for a very long time. Yeah, I still have those days of brokenness, but I was broken every single day, and they were there to lift me up. We kept the family together. You know, we're a rock. You know, you can scratch it, you can skate it, you can throw it, but the rock never broke. And my family knew that all the years that I worked so hard for them and provided honorably for my family and was a champion in the family, when I went down, they stepped up. And when they stepped up, they helped me battle this fight. They didn't engage as advocates, they engaged to help me in my mental health, in my emotional health. And they came up in my room and they kept me company when I was sitting in my chair, not coming out of my room. We'd watch a ball game or something. Everybody would come up and see Dad, you know, like, hey, we got to go visit Dad, you know, because I had a hard time walking and, you know, they helped get me through the days. But my wife is the one that was really the glue here that kept everything together. And, you know, my kids could have easily gone down a bad path, you know, but they didn't, because we still had the love there for them and the genuine love, you know, that we've always raised our family with. And it didn't matter how bad things got. That family stayed together as one cohesive unit. And, it's a beautiful thing. And,
Oh man, I'm just totally impressed. I mean, what you went through, first of all, is in my mind unprecedented. And
yeah, it is. It's
I've
unfortunately it's
seen,
never happened.
I've seen, I can't find the words for what you went through, but more importantly, you just didn't take it lying down. You fought back. And I mean, the congressmen that, you mentioned, they weren't from your district, were they?
No, I didn't have a member of Congress. See, when all this stuff happened, my member of Congress basically resigned.
Wow.
He stole some money from, I think, his campaign funds. Something happened, and there was basically a loss of confidence, censured from Congress. So he just ended up walking away and resigned. Well, in the state of California, I lived in a red district. Very few red districts. So Gavin Newsom would not hold a special election in my district. So I went 2 years without a member of Congress.
That's amazing.
So that's why I stepped up and I had to do this on my own. Taxation without representation, whatever you want to call it. But I didn't need a member of Congress. I'm an American. And when I showed up there in D.C., I let them know just that. Look, I'm a former Marine. This is what happened to me. And let me explain. I wasn't there to waste my time, Bernie. I wasn't there to grandstand. I was there to get jobs done. So I created a logo. I created folders. I went to the same people that I paid for years and years and years to do all of my marketing for my business. And I said, you guys know what happened to me. I need some marketing material. Can I design some stuff and you guys print it for me? I need folders. I need, hard stock, documents, that I can hang out, flyers that make me look like I am a member of Congress. And I mean, like, I'm down to business here. I'm not coming in here with lined paper with, or a bar napkin with ideas. I'm coming in there. I'm walking the walk. I'm talking the talk. I've got a tie on. I comb my freaking hair. I got a suit jacket on. I got slacks on. I got dress shoes on. And I'm in there to get things done. And you can't do that without having them remember you. So you could speak to them across the table, eye to eye, but unless you leave them something, they're not going to remember you. Well, what did I have? I had out pre-written letters directly to each member of Congress, and then I had a thank you card in there. And then I was very brief on how I advocated. 1, 2, 3, 4 lines there, and some pictures, right? So they know, okay, I've got the visual on this. Okay, I've got, 100 words here, maybe, that tell the story like that, because you got to be quick. You got 3 minutes in a congressional meeting.
Oh yeah.
Maybe 5. If they're interested, you'll get 10, 15, 20. And so this is what's needed when you go in there and you begin to try to influence these members of Congress to do the right thing. And another thing that I had to do, and this is great for all veterans out there that are going through their own problems in life, and a lot of it is systemic issues at the VA. There's so many veterans out there that have great ideas, but they don't know how to put it in a package and deliver it. They may have a solution in their head, like I did. I drafted a solution and I said, here, you don't have to do any work. It's good. I did your job for you here. And there's so many veterans out there that know what they want and how they can fix a broken system, but they don't know how to communicate it, and they don't know how to deliver it in that said package. So the advocacy part, I think, is just as important as surviving the bone-eating staph infection that nearly killed me, and going through the medical malpractice and the legal malpractice, because without the advocacy, this would still be going on, and there would still be veterans out there that are suffering the fate of horrifying and egregious loss due to no fault of their own. So it was definitely a strategy. It was strategic. I mean, I had to go in there, and I had maps of Congress. I knew where all the HOBs were. I can't barely walk, so I'm not going to schedule something, over in the Russell Senate office building the same day I've got to go to Longworth, right? So I went building to building to building. So what did that look like? Well, before I even went out to there, I would write down all of my appointments from building to building to building, and I would gap them by 30 minutes. So I'm always 15 minutes prior. I know I'm going to get 5 minutes with the member of Congress, 5 minutes to leave, 5 minutes to sit down, and I'm still going to be there 15 minutes prior because I'm going door to door. And if they didn't want to meet me, I skipped and I went to the next door. And if they didn't want to meet, I skipped and I went to the next door. So I kept my meetings very clear, concise, to the point, and close, so I can effectively see as many people during each stay I was in DC.
Well, Brian, I got another question for you, though.
Yeah.
How is your health now? I mean, you just went through hell and you were physically impaired while you're doing it, but how are you now physically?
Well, I just had another surgery not long ago on my neck because all 3 levels of my spine were compromised. My bladder doesn't work. There's a lot of other things that I don't want to mention inside my body that don't work. I got bad kidney, and I suffer from 24 medical diagnoses now that were all related to the bone-eating staph infection that ate me from the inside out for 4 months. So I am a chronic pain patient. I do suffer some cognitive, issues now because of all the pills that I was on for years. 40 pills a day out of 13 different pill bottles. Now I take 20. So I'm doing a lot better. I've cut that in half. I've lost 100 pounds over the last 3 years. I'm doing intermittent fasting now because it's been good on my organs.
Yeah.
Because they took such a beating, and they still continue to take a beating to this day. But I mean, I'm 47 years old. This happened when I was 38, going on 39. And so I'm in the prime of my life, and I finally have a business that's been around for 13 years, and right now I should be reaping all those benefits, but instead, I draw a disability for the rest of my life, and it does at time make me feel like I'm less of a man. Because I should be, earning so much more. And, when they crush your livelihood and they take away your physical health and they just instill you with anxiety and depression, which I suffer from immensely to this day, it takes a big hit on my pride, if you will. But I know that God had other plans for me. I was able to do something that nobody has ever done in this country before, and that's stand up and fight for what's right in the face of adversity, draft your own bill, lobby it for 3.5 years, donate 12,000 hours of my own time on my own dime, and basically recruit a grassroots coalition that helped me with phone calls, with emails, with stationery, with getting the word out in the veteran community that, hey, this guy here means business and he's doing it honorably. I didn't go burn buildings down. I didn't go, hold signs in front of Senate buildings that say, the VA is horrible and ruined my life. I killed them with kindness. Well, I went in there and I wanted to be heard, and I wanted to be heard in an honorable way. I was there to change a law. I wasn't there to make the news in a dishonorable way. I wasn't going to dishonor my family name, Bernie.
Well, let me ask you this. Now that the law has been changed and the system has been changed and the rights have been wronged, did you ever get an apology from any of these people?
I didn't. I did not get one apology from anybody in the VA. When we had our final congressional hearing, the VA could have apologized, but all they did was continue to deflect what we wanted to do. And they stated that they did everything right when they didn't. And, I called them out on it. We embarrassed them nationally. I had members of Congress embarrass them during the congressional hearing, and they should have been, rightfully so, because they knew that they were in the wrong all along.
Wow.
And you commit a crime in such a fraudulent way against a good, honorable family that was doing everything right, served his country, raising a family, running a small business, contributing in a positive way, paying your taxes, volunteering to coach your kids in sports, being an active community leader. All that wasn't good enough, I guess, for my country. So I took a beating, and I still continue to take a beating. But I'm glad you asked that question, Bernie.
Well, it sounds like you really took some pain, but here's the thing.
Yeah.
I mean, the VA is not all bad, but I will say that it has improved significantly due to the efforts of people like you, President Trump, some of the more conservative members of Congress. They've gotten a lot better, but that does not excuse the fact of what they did to you.
Look, my fight was never with VA clinicians, Bernie. And folks have got to understand that. I am probably one of the most easygoing, fair men that you'll ever meet in your life. I've never sued anybody in my entire life. Never. Not one time until this happened. I didn't get in it for it. That's why we changed the law. But man, I lost my train of thought here. What was I gonna say?
Let it roll, man.
I totally just blanked out, Sam.
But that's okay. That's okay. Here's the deal. I've kept you on here for a long time, and I find your story to be interesting because I know, my entire adult life has been spent around the military, and I have a great need and a desire to see veterans taken care of properly. I mean, you and I met through Veterans for America First. And that's how we got tied up together. I would have never known your story. And you run a podcast, you've written a book, you've done all this stuff. And part of the reason that we're having you on there on this program is to get your story out to regular people and let people know that, hey, there's some options out here. And if you get out here and fight hard enough, you can change the law. Literally.
Yeah.
You did it. So
I just remembered what I wanted to say. My fight was never with the clinicians of the VA. There's so many great doctors and clinicians that care deeply about veterans within the VA hospitals.
Yeah.
And I mean that wholeheartedly. I've got some great doctors now. I've got some great therapists, and they sincerely love veterans.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to have some bad apples, whatever. That's everywhere in life, right? My fight was with the Office of General Counsel, the attorneys on the 7th floor on Vermont Street in Washington, D.C. That's where the problem lies in the VA. So when veterans are complaining about the VA, they're not necessarily complaining about their primary care physician or their surgeon. They're complaining about the bureaucratic process behind the VA veil, the faces you can't see, the names you don't know, the bureaucrats that are unelected that are running it directly into the ground. That's the fight I took on, and that's what people need to understand. Now, I have some unfinished business.
Uh-oh.
And I'm not done yet, because I've dedicated my life to the betterment of changing law. So I drafted another bill 2 years ago, and I've been working on it for over a year and a half. Well, I can tell you now, I know how the sausage making is done in D.C. And like I said yesterday, I sent a message to both LegCo in HVAC and in the Senate. And I said, it's done. It's ready to go. The sausage is done, and we're ready to eat. And this bill is going to be introduced hopefully here within the next 2 weeks. And because I did all of the hard work for the last year and a half, getting approval and going through markups after markup after markup after markup, it's going to be introduced. And it's going to be introduced very late in this Congress.
What's the name of it?
This one is the Brian Talley VA Employment Transparency Act of 2023. So this is what didn't get passed during the original Talley bill. So the original Talley bill that passed, which is right here, closed the loophole completely.
Yeah.
This is just added transparency, added accountability, and added, it makes it easier for that veteran to get the things that they need done, and to hold the Office of General Counsel to even more account and force their hand to do the right thing. You know, it's easier to do the right thing than it is to screw up on purpose.
I do believe that you are correct, good sir.
Yeah, it's easier to do the right thing. You know, they could have told me the employment status of this physician if they didn't want to have the federal tort claim within the VA. They could have told me within 30 days that the person that they're going to cherry pick out of the 12 to write, hey, it's an independent contractor, sewer and state court. Okay. Well, I would have had 11 months to do that. But they called and said, we're sorry that this happened. The sorry was before the loophole because they wanted to keep me content.
Yeah.
They lowered and dropped our anxiety. Talk about emotional roller coasters. Talk about a psychological type operation to put on a family that's losing everything and that's trying to save off financial ruin. And they're like, hey, we're settling your claim. And then 3 days before Thanksgiving in 2017, they said, yeah, no, we're not. And this is why. Oh, and you have 1 day to file suit. Oh, no, you lost your, they sent it 1 day with 1 day remaining. So when I got it, I was 2 days out of my state statute of limitations. So don't tell me they weren't watching the clock on that. These guys know when to send letters out. I'll tell you that.
And I would venture to say that these people are not veterans. They are probably folks that have contempt for veterans, to tell you the truth. But anyway, Bottom line is you have fought the fight and you have my eternal gratitude and respect. And we're going to get the word out about your story. We're going to spread it among the veterans that we know, Veterans for America First, and let people know your story. And maybe we can try to get you a little bit more support for the things you're trying to do. So with that said, can I ask you to tell people what's on your mind? One last time, and then we'll ask you about how people can contact you.
What's on my mind right now? Well, I started a podcast because I was looking, when your livelihood gets taken away from you and you're trying to figure out what you're going to be and what you're going to become, you have to reinvent yourself and you have to recreate yourself and you have to basically repurpose yourself and rebrand yourself to say, I've lost that. I will no longer be able to do that. But going through years of depression and anxiety and trying to make myself better, I realized that I needed to find who I was going to be in this next stage of my life. And I started a podcast about 2 years ago, about 2 years and a month, so about 25 months ago. And it's really brought purpose and a lot of happiness to my life. I've realized that it's so much easier to deal with pain when you're happy than when you're sad. When you're sad and you're really anxious and depressed, the pain it's a lot to handle. It's still on me today, but when you get up and you're happy and you have a heart of gratitude, the pain is so much easier to fight. And now that I have a newfound purpose in life, which is my podcast, it's brought me that that beacon of hope that, hey, look, man, everything's going to be all right. And I don't get paid to do this or anything. I do it because it makes me feel good. I want to put stories out there from people that have done amazing things, that have battled through perseverance and resilience and adversity in their life, and then have shown that you can come out on the other end triumphant, and be a champion. And you may not be a champion in someone else's eyes, but as long as you're a champion in your own eyes and in your own heart and your own story and your family is proud of you, you've done your job. This life is, it's not an easy walk. It may come easy for some, and it comes more difficult for others, but it is what it is. But other than that, I've got a newfound purpose. And if people want to reach out, my website is briantally.com, briantally.com. Just know I'm not a nonprofit. I'm just there to kind of help folks. If they reach out to me, I can at least get them some good vetted resources. But there is so much time that I do a lot to this, and I really need to start pulling back on that because it's a lot. And we need to start holding these elected officials accountable to do the job that I've been doing for them.
You can
because
say,
it's not fair to me to continue to do what I'm doing in the space that I'm doing it in. I'm not getting anything for it except for I'm helping these veterans, which is great. But people that are getting paid and are therefore they need to start doing their job and stop ignoring these veterans to the point to where they're reaching out to me by the hundreds. And that's how a lot of the veteran suicide is happening. It's not always because of the wounds of war. It's because they're going to the VA because of the wounds of war and because how they're treated, either on getting appointments canceled or not being able to get through the telephone lines because they're on hold for 2 hours, or not getting timely care, or having their claims completely denied.
yeah,
That's what forces a lot of these veterans into a very dark place. And then one thing after another, substance abuse and this and that, anxiety, depression, despair, turns into, removing yourself from this life. So my mission, if that veteran is in crisis mode and they reach out to me, I'm 100% engaged in that veteran and trying to save that veteran. I've helped plenty of those guys and
yeah.
gals, over the years. So, you don't wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to become an advocate, because it is not an easy job. It is painstaking. You do it because you care, and you do it because it's what God has called you to do. And if God calls me to do something, I'm going to answer that call to service.
There you go. Brian, you got a book that you haven't even mentioned, bro. Talk to us.
Yeah, it's a book I wrote. So it was kind of really easy for me to write this book because I took good notes along the way, because I kept myself transparent the whole way. And I would always post everything that I was going to do that day. So I held myself accountable even when I didn't have to. I ran this operation as if it were a business. Like I said, with my flyers and everything else, and putting out, this is what I'm doing today. This is who I'm calling today. This is what happened today. So when I got done with passing this law and closing this loophole, all I had to do was refer back to my notes, and the book wrote itself.
Wow.
And I think it's a very important read for any veteran out there, and really anybody that wants to hear a feel-good story, a pick-me-up, a dose of hope, because it tells the story of a very broken man who was living the American dream until he wasn't, and had rebuilt himself all the way to the man he is today while changing federal law. People say, Tally, I can't even get a hold of my doctor. How in the hell did you change VA law? How did you change federal? I don't know, man. I went in there and I just got her done. I never stopped. I never wavered. Clear, concise, consistency every single day, and dedication, and having that obsession is what got that bill across the finish line.
Well, let me tell you something. I'm impressed. There's a lot of people that need to know about you, and that's why you're having you on the program, and we're going to push your story as hard as we can. And I just want to thank you for everything you've done, because you're not just doing this for me. You're not just doing this for, the guys that were in your platoon. You're doing this for all veterans, all across various services, and this is going to be something that's going to be a legacy for all of us, but especially you. So I thank you, brother. I thank you for being on the program, and I look forward to having you back on again. And if I may, let me give a shout out to all the hurricane victims down in North Carolina, and also the ones coming up in Florida. Wow, what a situation, and I'm praying for them. But again, thank you for all that you've done and all that you plan on doing. Thank you, brother.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me, Bernie.
All right. We'll have you on again sometime soon.
Super 5.
Well, that's about it for now. This has been the Loyal Opposition Podcast, produced in association with Fallback Productions and Veterans for America First. Please like, share, and subscribe as we try to grow the channel and protect America's middle class. Be sure to get your copy of my book, Black Values Matter, available as an ebook on Amazon, Audible, and Apple Books. And also, remember, it's okay to disagree. But if we want our country to prosper, we must insist on unity, transparency, and civility for ourselves and for our fellow citizens. Thanks for listening to the Loyal Opposition Podcast. We'll see you next week.